tell me what your thoughts are on specifically copper and the industrial metals.
So regarding industrial metals, it's all about copper, Dr. Copper. We've all heard the saying, and it is a leading economic indicator of the world economy. Copper's down. It hit a yearly low here a couple of weeks ago. Now trading somewhere around 380 on the spot price. But there's Chinese concerns with what I view as a cratering Chinese economy. China uses about 40% of the world's copper, and recession fears. So, especially copper, the industrial metals, the prices are in large part a function of the hedge funds and the commercial traders, what they see going forward. So there were something like a 7-8 year low in net longs, commercial traders and hedge funds a couple of 3 weeks ago in the copper market. So that's tended to knock the copper price down. I am a permeable on copper. We use something on the order of 25 million tons of copper a year. We are in a supply deficit, but most concerning is the future supplies of copper. We use well over a Bingham Canyon per year. Bingham Canyon is one of the largest porphyry copper mines in the world, and certainly in the US. And it started production in 1840, a continuous production. So we use that amount of copper every year, which means we've got to find that amount of copper every year, and we're not doing it. So long-term, very bullish on copper, medium-term bullish on the copper. I'm not even going to go there regarding short-term projections of copper prices because it's really in control of speculators.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that then, not short-term, but let's project. I don't even want to project a timetable. Let's assume that China works itself out, not so much that they have a booming economy, but let's say they stabilize within the next, which I think is something reasonable, within the next 6 to 12 months. Let's say the same thing with the US. And then we no longer have those concerns in the next 6 to 12 months. What's that going to do to the copper price? And that's might be a rhetorical question.
Well, and so you would suppose that the copper price will go up. I'm going to backtrack a little bit and tell you at 380 copper, a significant number of copper producers worldwide, let's say, is the highest quartile of price producers, are underwater right now. So eventually some of that production is going to come off. But once again, the copper market, and there's analysts, I know a couple in New York that I am in contact with on a regular basis, and we've all realized over the years that the short-term copper price goes up and goes down depending on what the hedge funds are doing. Right. Hedge funds pour in, hedge funds pour out, and you've got the same thing going on in Shanghai Exchange in China. So reason would demand, if the economy gets straightened out, copper price will go up, but it's not always a reasonable market.
Right. And that's something, I guess, made me think right now, what you just said, is it, and not to say that this would happen, but you could see, or I could see it happening. It could be a big squeeze into copper sometime, where you see what it, like, for example, what nickel did in the LME.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Right, wasn't it?
But that's a much smaller market. It's about 8% of the size of the copper market on a yearly basis.
Well, talk to me about the other base metals like nickel. Yeah, talk to me about some of the other base metals that you
Well, nickel is basically production's controlled by about 5 major mining companies worldwide, and it is very sensitive to geopolitical issues. So the squeeze that happened in nickel last year, which essentially destroyed the the LME's at optics, if you will.
Good way to put it.
It was basically created by the fact that Indonesia and the Philippines went to resource nationalism, as they tend to do, and said, if you don't smelt it here, we're not going to sell it to you. So it created artificial short. And then you had the guys coming in and shipping nickel that was a bag of rocks to the LME. And so that market is very subject to manipulation. I basically don't play any of the base metal markets or stocks that are solely focused on nickel, lead, zinc, unless they are integrated miners. And so
Right.
most of those are dominated by copper producers. So buyer beware, is what I would say about those sorts of things.
Right. Well, speaking of stocks, are there, as a sector, again, this has been beat up, but we do see the supply constraints and the coming demand, and maybe it's not there yet, or maybe it is. But it sounds like you would play this on the equity side, and specifically junior equity side.